Welcome to the 2022 Forum for Excellence, Cultivating Collaboration Through Conversations. Forum sponsors. And welcome to the Digital Learning Lab, Building Self-Efficacy for Instructors and Learners in Digital Literacy, Equity, and Inclusion. I'd like to introduce myself and my co-presenter as well. My name is Michael Montos. I'm the Education Technology Director for ScaleIt. I'd like to introduce you to Kay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kay Crandall. I am a digital literacy navigator at ScaleIt.
We'd also like to start off with some special thanks to past Digital Learning Lab subject matter experts and current, I believe that some of the participants are past, most of our current subject matter experts, Joy Pack, Jennifer Madrell, David Rosen, and the participant educator that we borrowed some of this information from as examples of Colleen Stribling. We continue here. So an introduction to ScaleIt, the organization that both Kay and myself work for, as well as the organization that is the sponsor and managing for the Digital Learning Lab. So CCLC was our name not too long ago, Chicago Citywide Literacy Coalition, and we have been announcing our name change at our annual fundraiser, Beyond Books, and so on. And ScaleIt reflects the organization's vision to expand services to help organizations use adult literacy best practices to inform effectively serving the community with not only the best practices, but resources that surround the culmination of developing these best practices. Under the new name, ScaleIt continues to assist in members in advancing work in its core program areas like career pathways, digital literacy, as we're going to talk about a little bit today, and health literacy. Just to start it off here, some QR codes. What would a presentation be nowadays without starting it off with a QR code and a link? This is to our presentation, which is also available through the app. It's a link that first link and QR code will take you to that presentation. The second link over on the right here is the our Jamboard link, which we anticipate that you'll be participating in this throughout. It'll be open for you to work with the Jamboard. I am going to click on the link here, go onto the Jamboard just for a little bit, if I can get to it here. Let me see here. There we go. You have to click on the link. Got it. And I am going to briefly explain how to use Jamboard, though it's become a very popular tool since the last time I did this particular presentation, which wasn't too long ago. Pen, right? Eraser. We have a selection tool. We have the sticky notes. We have pictures you could add. We have shapes where you can add text into. We have a text box, and then we have a laser pointer. And using the laser pointer here, here's my first question. Emotional well-being is just as important for instructors as it is for learners. What ways has your organization accomplished this? So populate the slide. Let me know what you think. These ideas will be shared not only with everyone that comes into the Jamboard, but further as we explore many of these questions in our Digital Learning Lab. Some of the surveys that you'll see that have been conducted in our learner and educator efficacy surveys. You'll learn a little bit more about that later in some of the results. However, this is just an example question and for you to look at and go ahead and respond as well. Now, the first few questions on this survey are more about confidence and what is your current confidence level with the particular technique, question, skill that's involved in the question. The next set of questions that we offer in our survey, which I'll talk about, as I mentioned a little later, is professional development needs. So we measure it by high priority, some need, or low priority. We'll look at that. And I have put in a few examples there, 3 of them. And then just my questions around this off. And once again, explored quite a bit within the digital learning lab and shared throughout the community. What learning delivery are you offering for your classes? Is it blended learning courses, hybrid learning courses, flipped learning courses, and or the flex learning courses? Okay, I know that definition kind of crosses some of these names, but that's okay. Have you used or plan to use VR or AR to teach? Tell us if you area and how, and what area, I guess, and how you plan to use this, and I will change that on there as we go through this. And my last couple of questions: what is digital equity and inclusion? Why is digital equity and inclusion important? Tell us a little bit, probably in combination with that, you'll tell us a little bit about what you know about this as well. And then please share some ideas on how you can bring more digital equity to your classroom. And of course, your classroom is not only in person, it's virtual, it's hybrid. How can you do that? That's a very important aspect of this particular question. There you go. That's where you're right there live to be recorded. All right, leave it like that. Okay, so as you work on that, obviously you can add questions that we'll look at. All right, so just real quick here, I just want everyone to catch the QR code one more time and the link to the Jamboard. Okay, so the objective and agenda. Why are we here today? Well, we're here to discuss how technology can play that pivotal role in uniting us all as co-learners, and we've seen that so many times. It takes that community learning to navigate the increasingly complex future of work. And our agenda, looking at the digital learning lab, its makeup, a little bit of history, some of the metrics, supporting real-time student engagement, where we'll look at a number of strategies, looking at the resources that are related with these strategies, and then we'll round it off with takeaways. But first, I'm gonna leave my screen here and have you concentrate a little bit more on what I have up on my screen, and what's, you know, the news, right? What I wanted to share, what output that we get, what data can we share, looking at the instructor staff self-efficacy towards educational technology, our pre and post surveys that we gave at the beginning of the project year and at the end of the project year. We looked at self-efficacy in that technology realm, as we looked at administering this, as I mentioned at the beginning and at the end of the year. And then 2 questions: the I feel confident in the professional development needs, and I'll move past that. As mentioned already in the Jamboard, the results, the confidence started high, as expected, and increased by over 10%. So this unexpected in just that, I would say, 10-month period. Professional development needs were measured by that, low priority, high priority, and already skilled. And high priority on many was the norm for the pre-tests. However, we saw an increase of 11% of already skilled responses for the post-test. So that it was encouraging as we build those already skilled instructors and staff. We also looked at a learner pre and post technology self-efficacy, and looking at we administer both in English and Spanish, and looking at 3 types of questions for that project year. It was administered both at the beginning and the end of the terms, which correspond with what we call a sprint. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. And the types of questions that we looked at were, I have used, do you know, and I expect. We saw an increase of 9% to 15% in all categories. Identification of increased use of various tech tools was well noted as we looked through this. And working virtually, that confidence level increased tremendously as we saw that as they started responding to more surveys, as we continue to ask, what platforms are you using? What apps are you using to continue to learn in and out of class? And for both of these slides, there are examples of the results, the measurements of those results. This one has a pre and a post, and they're put together in the Spanish test and the English test. And you can see those results clearly. The one for the instructors, as you can see here, there is also an example for you to look at. Okay, over 20% of our population have limited skills in reading, writing, math, or English proficiency. They're digital tools. These digital tools, they offer the promise to improve the effectiveness and reach of adult education. And for many, adult education is the most accessible, affordable avenue for mobility. And this plays in perfectly to that need for that digital ability for that mobility, right? In today's economy, continual learning and critical thinking skills are crucial for success. And we see that growing and growing every day. 32 million US adults are not digitally literate. So they don't have that competence or that confidence to look up a recipe in the computer, make a retail purchase, search for jobs, file taxes online, just read an article online. Approximately 80% of our adult education learners have less than basic computing skills. Support for adult educators in effectively incorporating learning technologies into the classroom is the goal of Digital Learning Lab. So the Digital Learning Lab, Scale It's Digital Learning Lab, came in with these 3 core elements that we continue to prove or support every year. Support for adult educators, looking at and effectively incorporating learning technology into the classroom, but using these subject matter experts and curated resources to help with this, especially at the beginning. A facilitated learning community for educators and administrators to support, advise, and learn from each other and from the resources they find valuable. Capturing insights about the most effective digital tools, delivery models, support strategies, which can then be shared across the state of Illinois. And even further, we have shared it across the country. A little bit of the makeup. Participants, our last 2 years, we had 30 educators There were administrators in there as well, and 1 or 2 support staff. 5 cohorts with 6 educators in each. 3 sprints, as I mentioned earlier. A sprint is where a cohort is able to make some changes, or individuals within the cohorts are able to make some changes. Usually the duration of a sprint is 3 to 4 months, which fits in perfect with some of our school terms. Hypothesis, goals, and metrics can be adjusted at the end of each one of these sprints, as we find that some of these hypotheses, these goals, these metrics may have been supported, and there's proof for that. And now we're even in the process of sharing with others and continue to bring in the action part of our experiment. Subject matter experts support cohorts, guide participants through the experimentation process, through that whole process, as well as the support from Scale It and its technology and digital literacy team. Scale It's Digital Learning Lab. So participating educators act as entrepreneurs. They research this digital tools, and they experiment. Then they send out their results, right? It's shared across. They help adult learners become more confident in using technology, and hopefully in and out of the classroom, right? They reimagine their roles as innovators, and actually become those advocates for technology. And continue to support this use by developing their own professional development at the local levels and even further. So a little bit about metrics. We've talked about hypothesis and metrics and those goals and so on. Just looking at, not going too much into the study of that, but looking at a document that we have here real quick, that we use for help to onboarding, to understanding that this is an experiment as we work through it. But it's not only an experiment that we qualify or quantify data, but we also look at it as, can we take action in our own organization or help another organization, some other participants within the project or even outside the project to help this, what we found, to help these findings support what they are doing and continue to help with their project or their program is doing, give them that support. Nice little form here that we have, and it's just a real basic understanding to start to write that down. My technology use, looking at my hypothesis and the refinement of that, the technology use, what am I thinking of using, what kind of resources, the metrics, what do I plan to measure, how do I plan to measure it, just very basics there. Back to the screen here. And then, of course, on this screen that we started with here are just some other metrics that have been supported through data, and as well as whether they were quantitative or qualitative. And this is one slide of so many, but very much in relation to those hypotheses and metrics. So for right now, I'd like to turn this over to Kay Crandall, and I will stop sharing and bring her on.
Great, thanks, Michael. I'm going to go ahead and pick up with some example metrics here. So this is one of our many thanks to our subject matter expert, Jennifer Madrell. Her cohort's name is Team Awesome. And we're going to review a couple of examples of sprint hypotheses, how they were carried out, and takeaways from 2 different sites and 2 different participants. So we have an example here of what might be presented at a midpoint or a year-end event for all of the teams and cohorts. So starting out with a vision statement, integrating digital literacy and problem solving into instruction, accelerates learning for adult students by improving their use of technology to solve problems and communicate with others while increasing their digital literacy and access. And then as well, we've got the Team Awesome hypothesis that they collaborated on to come up with something to practice for this particular sprint. And their hypothesis is technology-rich environments and adult education classes can help instructors differentiate instruction while enabling learners to gain 21st century skills. So now we're going to look at 2 examples of putting this hypothesis into action. Our first example is with Tina Kelly from College of DuPage in Illinois. And Tina Kelly is a student success coach and adjunct faculty member. So she gives some context here of the classroom that she's working in and the individuals she's working with, and a breakdown of the sprints. So for sprints 1 and 2, the focus was integrating and using data from North Star digital literacy assessments in order to gauge the digital literacy levels of students. And sprint 3 was pivot from face-to-face classes to online learning using Chromebooks and Burlington English Core. So just in the 1, 2, and 3 sprints, we see a use of a variety of digital resources. North Star digital literacy assessments are coming out of Literacy Minnesota, great organization, and these assessments cover a variety of basic digital literacy topics, starting at a lower level. And then we have the use of Chromebooks and Burlington English Core, a combination of that at-home tool using the laptop and the other curriculum through Burlington English. And the student demographic here is high beginning, low intermediate, high intermediate, and advanced English language classes. So going on to the strategies and outcomes for these sprints, Tina shared with us that she learned as a strategy, use the North Star Digital Literacy Assessment to determine skills and drive instruction. So here, this tool, North Star Digital Literacy Assessments, are being used as a pre and post assessment to determine where a learner's skills lie, a beginning point, and then after driving instruction, an endpoint to see progress. And we see that with the adjustment when teaching using the North Star curriculum, instructors need to provide additional visuals and vocabulary. So while this was a great tool, it wasn't all encompassing for these learners. And so we see the instructors looking to bring in additional resources to supplement this. Some outcomes, North Star digital literacy assessments, pre and post assessments. So again, that tracking of the progress of the learners to see the percentage passed and the different standards achieved, both in the pre and post assessments. We're able to see an increase through targeted instruction, and the goal to achieve a North Star digital literacy badge, which is awarded to a learner when they score 85% or higher on a North Star assessment. And then we have these lessons learned, or some aha moments. The North Star digital literacy assessments are user-friendly. We were able to use the assessment with various levels of students. Teaching materials needed some support, and we were able to use the data to increase student knowledge and motivation. So these are some great takeaways, and moving forward, this site has continued to use North Star with their learners, their adult learners, and they continue to grow and learn what other tools they might be able to use and how to better integrate with learners. We're going to move on to example 2, keeping the score. And this is with Sue Alexander, an ESL coordinator at Lincoln Land Community College, also on Team Awesome. And Sue took a very different approach, using a leaderboard to motivate students. And how does that even work? Teachers turn in the homework hours of each student on their attendance each week. The coordinator adds up the hours and posts them on the leaderboard once a week. As you can see an example of the leaderboard on the right here for November. And the coordinator posts the results in the WhatsApp group for each of the 6 online classes. So this is happening with learners who are working remotely, and they're able to see who's in first through 19th place on this list, their first names, and the amount of hours that they have logged for homework. So here's an example of what this would look like in the WhatsApp. I believe this is on a desktop computer, but it's also an application that can be used on the phone. And it's a free application. So all the learners are able to come on here and be grouped into, as you can see on the left side of the screen, an asynchronous ESL class. And they're able to chat within this group anything related to the course. So here's the leaderboard. It says, here are the top homework scores for this week. If you did 3 hours of homework or more, congratulations. I couldn't fit everyone's name on here. So the list is even longer than the screenshot that we just saw, but people are able to celebrate here and see where they're falling on with their homework hours for the week. So homework that qualifies for the leaderboard, setting some parameters, participating in any of these activities. So studying with Burlington English, online readers, different various levels, vocabulary for specific careers, watching instructional videos, and completing practice tests. So all of these activities are able to be logged as homework hours from the student to the instructor, and then tallied up for the leaderboard. And Sue had some disclaimers. Leaderboard may cost something. They're using keepthescore.com, which it costs $6 for a year membership. And to some extent, students report their hours on an honor system. So this does depend on hours being submitted and being submitted honestly. Learning the process does take some time at first, but it does get easier. So both the logging the hours and also participating in the WhatsApp group. And she had some takeaway ideas. For larger programs, each teacher could post a leaderboard in their online or in-person class. So this would be a bulletin board up on the wall, on a whiteboard, or even projected. And the other idea she had was to start a book club, have students log their hours for reading and use those instead of regular homework. So there's lots of ways that this could be adapted into other situations. And as you can see, both of these participants in the cohort took very different directions on that original hypothesis, and they both had successes and learning moments in implementing these ideas. And I believe both are continuing to use these ideas in the classroom. All right, so we're going to move towards supporting real-time student engagement. And this is stated as a problem, need, or opportunity. So thinking of a situation that a classroom instructor, teacher, aide might be in trying to develop and decide which tools to use for student engagement. There's the analysis portion of where are we now? What is the situation that we're dealing with? And where do we need to be? What are our goals? And the plan, strategies, and resources, how are we going to work towards those goals? And what types of tools might we use to support real-time student engagement? And here we have some stats. So as everyone knows, the pandemic has really taken a toll on classroom situations. The quote here, COVID-19 has heightened socioeconomic inequities, specifically as it pertains to access to technology, learning resources, and technological devices. Students from less advantaged groups struggle to feel connected and engaged with their classes, coursework, faculty, and peers. And we can see here on this chart the engagement. There's 11% lower socioeconomic status engagement, and then 48% of higher socioeconomic status. So even regardless of low or higher, the engagement is still low. So we're going to be working within this community of inquiry framework. And you can see this graphic of the teaching presence, social presence, and cognitive presence. And we're really going to break this down and talk about each of these pieces and how they relate to one another. And now we have some good news. Online teaching and learning has been studied for decades. Numerous research studies, theories, models, standards, and evaluation criteria focus on quality online learning, online teaching, and online course design. What we know from research is that effective online learning results from careful instructional design and planning. And that's where the framework comes in, is the design and planning with these different presence elements. All right, so here we're breaking it down from the Venn diagram into more digestible parts here. So we have the cognitive presence piece, learners engaging with instructional content, the teacher presence piece, learners engaged with the instructor, and the social presence, learners engaged with each other. And we know from our experiences in the pandemic that both the teacher and the social presence pieces have been somewhat taken away when we're working in a remote setting or a high flex hybrid setting. And so we're really going to be focusing on this cognitive presence and how to engage students with the instructional content, and how can it be further manipulated to bring in elements of the teacher presence and social presence, maybe when we're not in a traditional teaching setting. So here we've got some implications and goals for the digital learning lab, focusing on this cognitive presence. It's huge. We need to leverage quality digital resources for adult ed to really make learners' experience in the classroom a success. So here we have some breakdowns. 70% of instructors who had never taught online before moved classes online for the pandemic. So this developed a greater need for professional development to foster teaching and social presence. And we've got this ERT, teacher and social presence here. And really what we've done in the digital learning lab is create an environment to help and support instructors and administrators from different areas within adult education. So in the digital learning lab, we are helping instructors connect with one another and collaborate, helping instructors learn from one another, having instructor conversations focused on problem solving, and helping instructors achieve small successes. And I will say we've had some larger successes too. All right, so now I'm going to share this video, which was shared from Joy Pack, who is one of our subject matter experts, and it's called The Wisdom of the Geese. So I'm just going to pull into this.
There's a lot we can learn about teamwork from a rather surprising source. When geese migrate, they form a V shape. Whilst it looks pretty, it also has some important functions in terms of working as a group. When flying in a V formation, each member of the team creates an uplift for the team member behind. This team effort makes the flight of the whole group more efficient. If a goose breaks free from the V shape, it will immediately have to make more effort to keep up. So working in a team towards the same destination means less effort needs to be made as an individual. And the same goose doesn't always lead the V shape. Leadership rotates so that the burden of flying in front is shared. Again, this makes the whole flock more efficient. The geese flying behind encourage the front geese to keep up their speed by honking. This communication affects the whole team, and their positive feedback makes the whole team more successful. Lastly, if a goose gets sick and falls out of formation, two others will stay with it until it is well enough to join another flock. The team cares for one another, as a loss to the flock is a loss for all of them. So, to recap, working as a team is more efficient than working alone. Leadership can be shared for greater efficiency and to spread the burden. Communication with the whole team is important. Giving encouraging feedback promotes success, and having empathy for team members is always better than taking a selfish approach.
And we just love that video because it's a great comparison to the digital learning lab. We have our subject matter experts and they lead their cohorts, but also encouraging members in the cohorts, the participants, to act as leaders within the group and also at their respective organizations. I am going to pass things back to Michael. I'm going to stop share here.
As we try to look at how we're building this technology efficacy and these communities of learning within this vision of digital literacy and building equity and inclusion and just that independence for everyone. Look at communicating regularly and keeping the whole vision at your forefront. That there's obviously going to be some unique challenges that the team, and this is important, the team encounters, but it's much easier to stay motivated and focused in the vision, in that main vision at the forefront, which is still remains learning, right, as the central to each of these conversations that your team works with. So keep that in mind as you're remembering later on about the wisdom of geese. Our next section we're going to talk about here is selecting resources to support learning with technology, looking at technology integration and these two approaches, which I have used on a number of occasions in my own teaching. Lead with the technology or resource. And I'd like to thank one of our subject matter experts, Jennifer Madrell, in sharing some of this information. And as we roll through this, looking at that technology or that resource and leading you to that learner experience, or the other way around, looking at the learner experience and then leading you to that technology. We look at those phases, those instructional phases, the warm-up. So we look at an overview of the content, the concepts, and the skills to be taught. We look at the presentation. We demonstrate that information in a variety of modalities, which is very important. And then we engage the learners in activities to practice these new skills, these new concepts as we continue. We look at those approaches, those engagement approaches. So learner and learners, as you can see, working together, engage with each other during the lesson. Learner and instructor, learners engage with the instructor throughout the lesson. And then learner and content, where we have learners engage with the instructional material. So just mapping this out. So we have a warm up we have to go through. We have a presentation, and we have a practice as we look at the learner and those approaches, right? The learner and learners, a learner and instructor, and learner and content. We're looking for activities and tools that we can use to develop certain skills when they're practiced, and we're looking to evaluate, we're looking to bring in new stuff, but obviously not too many at one time. And then of course, since it's not going to be too many at one time, we want to make sure that there's a good process. There's a variety of ways that that training can happen, including lecturing, modeling, exploratory, like hands-on, for training the individuals that are going to be using these particular tools, as well as looking at where do we go from there to get total buy-in by all those key stakeholders that are going to be using this? Obviously, this includes the learners. So looking at the learner and the warm-up, we decided with Nearpod and presentation, voice thread, and the practice, the Kahoot, that covered the learner and learners approach. And then learner and instructor, we had WhatsApp and Wakelet and Google Classroom. Of course, there's a lot of background, as I mentioned in the last slide, that needs to come together in groups and conversation and look for those best fits for the learner experience. So your learner experience map. Looking at some of those, obviously we saw the outreach mode that took place with WhatsApp and Remind. You know, we're communicating with the learners, which is just so important. And then of course, keeping that social presence, you know, live on video and conferencing session with others. And of course, we have some of the three popular ones there as well. Looking for emotional support. Well, you know, address that stress as we work virtually or in person, and look at the curriculum and help to put it together, right? So everyone knows what's happening day to day. So, you know, and as we said, less can be more. You know, reduce lengthy live class meetings time and replace it with the asynchronous engagement, and that works both whether it's virtually or in person. Looking at some of the IDLL tech, the tools and resources that we used in this particular one, looking at some of the favorite learning resources through surveys that we found, and these are the top 10, as you can see here: Burlington, Quizlet, Duolingo, Google News for You Online, Kahoot, IXL, Nearpod, Northstar, and Quizlet were some of the more popular ones, but there was at least 60, I believe it was like 67 reported at one time that were being used throughout that project year. And once again, the 10 most popular. I'd like to just show you real quick our resource page within our digital learning lab page, which is part of our Scale It website. I'm going to take you directly to the link for the site, though you could get to the particular site through our Scale It. So here's our resources on our Scale It Digital Learning Lab site, as well as what you might find in there. If you'll see some of our digital equity and inclusion work that's in here, as well as resources that you'll find for many of these skills. We also have access to the digital skills library through Crowded Learning, as well as a number of lessons that have been put together by those best practices, lessons, activities, put together by those participants within the digital learning lab. And it's just done a great job of sharing them as well, as I continue to add more of these as they continue to come in. But feel free to look through those and use them as needed on our resource page. So the QR code is there, the web link is there. Hopefully you'll visit the site, and you'll also can learn a lot more about the Digital Learning Lab throughout the years, throughout the last 4 years, as you will find a number of stories and photos and other presentations and professional development. Looking at the tech tools, as you can see, some of our more popular tech tools as we start to work with more organizations that are using like VR and AR type of tools, up to those using Elmo document cameras and so on. As we move back into the classroom and do this hybrid, how are these going to continue to work within those environments and the different delivery environments. Looking at North Star, which was mentioned a little bit earlier by Kay, the digital literacy and just some of the work that we've done with North Star and those digital learning lab participants and their organizations. You know, at one time we had 59 organizations. We keep growing, over 15,000 assessments taken, over 7,000 assessments passed, 3,000 certificates awarded, and over 800 of those have received badges, electronic badges, to represent those certificates online. So just some great work, and the ability to use that and get the support to use that North Star digital learning online. It's just great. Looking at some other resources for learning about tools and different resources. I always turn to this page, the latest results out now, and they brought it down from 300 tech tools to 100 tech tools. It's really nice the way they have it split up: the tools for personal learning, tools for workplace learning, and tools for education. The QR code and the link is here. So you can see and basically take a test run of all of these different resources that you might be looking into implementing into your repertoire for teaching. You might want to take a look here and see how they've been rated. Go right into that site and learn so much more about this. A lot less responses this year to the survey, proclaiming this the year of consolidation. When we looked at 2021, they're calling it the year of experimentation. So many different resources in the experimentation process, as we saw in the digital learning lab, and then in 2022 consolidation. Not too many responses on new or different resources, bringing that list down to 100. But just a very interesting list, very interesting website to gather that information and continue to bring in more of those resources on board. The digital learning lab takeaways, and we're just getting these every day. Cohorts feel ready to be leaders in technology integration. And we see that every day. Digital literacy instruction is possible at any and all levels. Just so important. And that engagement and that learning requires modeling, that consistency. Routine integration of tech, increases likelihood that they will be used outside of class. Why? Because we all have various likes, right? And when you're looking at something so visual that has a lot to do with personal likes on how the platform is being delivered. Establishing that we are all learners and can diffuse confidence issues and reluctance to try, that we're all learners and we continue to be all learners, because in this technology integration world, it's just sudden. The change is sudden and continuous. So learning as a lifestyle, not an obligation, and just all of these. I'm not going to read through all of them, but we saw that this idea of that community, that conversation within a team, that it is important, that community is important, and the digital learning lab does build on that community. I'm gonna turn it over so you end up with a different voice. Kay?
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, we've just got a couple of slides to wrap up. So Michael mentioned that great resource page that can be accessed through scaleit.org. If you navigate to the digital resources, we've got a Google site that we're always updating with lots of great information, all dedicated to the digital learning lab, based on our participants and subject matters, experiences, and recordings from past events there as well. You can also follow Scaleit on all social accounts to learn more about what the lab has got going on. We have computer giveaway events with various community partners, and we're doing a lot of things for AEFL week as well. So go ahead and check out what we've got going on. And then we'll go on to this next slide. We've got some contact information for Michael and myself. Do you want to just click to the next slide? All right, yeah, so here you go. Michael at scalet.org, Kay at scalet.org, and you can contact us if you have any questions about the lab or any other digital literacy related, digital equity related content questions. Great. Thank you so much for coming to view our session on demand. You can complete the session feedback form that's provided on the Whova, and also view our presentation slides there. There's also a comment section, so if you have thoughts or additional resources, anything that you want to share related to this presentation, please feel free to post and comment there. Any final thoughts, Michael?
Thank you all so much for attending. Thank you, Cave. And we'll see you all soon.
Bye-bye.